Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of the Father Talks podcast. I am your host, Mike D. I am here with Mr. John Hord. Hopefully, I pronounced that right. John, welcome to the show. Thank you very much for coming on. We've been working on getting you on the show for a little bit. We had a little technical difficulty right before, so welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. I'm thrilled to be here, and I will warn you and anybody else that's listening, I'm shot out of a cannon right now. I've
Yeah.
had an awesome day so far. I probably had one extra cup of coffee, so I'm feeling kind of special this morning. So I'm just
Right.
gonna give everybody a warning.
Hey, that's all right. We love the energy.
Well, you're gonna get it today.
Okay, outstanding. So, John, I was reading through some of the things that you're working on. Please tell us about the Engaged Father Project. Before we start any questions or any extra stuff, please tell us about the Engaged Father Project. I think I read about it, so we want everybody else to hear.
Yeah, thank you. So I'll give a tiny bit of backstory and we can dive in, to how I got here further later on in the episode.
Ooh,
But the Engaged Father Project, I built it for dads that are out there working hard, feeling the challenges of life, the stresses of life, the full schedules with sports and school and activities and all this stuff, right? Life gets so busy and it's really easy to sort of take our eye off the ball. And what I mean by that is we're working hard in so many areas that we often overlook what is really and truly most important. And in my opinion, it's being an amazing father and it's parenting from a place of, being intentional and being present and being really aware of everything that we're bringing to the table. And it takes a little bit of work to do that, right? It's not common for guys to show up and talk about all their emotional struggles and all the hardships that come along with raising a family, but they're real. One, it's a space for dads to learn from other dads and to kind of figure out maybe it's like tips or tricks or to see other people that are struggling with the same struggles. It's like, oh, like all of a sudden when you realize like you're not alone, things start to shift. And like that's just tip of the iceberg. But what the Engaged Father Project is really about, it's an opportunity for dads to get more clear than they've ever been before on the type of dad they want to be, why they want to be that kind of dad, and then how to turn that from a goal into something that actually starts to take shape in their lives to where like their kids notice and feel these sorts of changes. And this is all done within the time frame of before our window with our kids closes. And ultimately, we don't have as much time as we think we really do to
no,
kind of
that,
model to be this dad, right? If you're talking about a young kid kind of seeming like a wet ball of clay, I mean, by the time your kids are a little bit older, Michael, and so you can speak from true perspective. Like when they start to hit 13, 14, 15, things change and we don't have
so
until they're
fast,
18 when they move
so
out.
fast.
So it's about doing this work before it's too late.
Okay, outstanding. And listen, I can speak to that wholeheartedly. Man, it seemed like my kids were this big yesterday. Today, they're all grown up, pretty much moved out of the house. My youngest daughter's still here. My son's back from college right now because he's going to a new school. Excuse me. Uh, I apologize to everybody. You guys are going to hear a lot of coughing in the background. I'm just getting over a cold, and the cough seems to be the one thing that just will not go away.
Yeah, it's tough.
But so with that being said, anyways, so my kids are all adults now, and for me this is learning new ways to fix some of our broken relationships. Because what people don't know about me is that my kids lived with me 90% of the time, you know, and being a single dad, you know, raising your kids and everything, I had to be the judge, jury, and executioner, and I always had to do what came next, or whatever. It was never about what was best for me. It was always about what was best for my kids in the moment. And hopefully my kids will understand that one day when they have their own kids, you know. But for me, I also want to prevent other young guys from going through similar situations, not being able to articulate how they feel to their children and everything coming out like anger. So you've had an extremely stressful day and whatnot. You're worried about your kids, so you're telling them no, they can't do something, right? And it's not because you're mad, but it comes out as anger, you know, but it's really just concern.
Mhm.
And because men don't know how to articulate all of their feelings, it's why, we have this, constant, headbutting with our kids because, we're coming from a place of concern most of the time, but it comes out as anger because we don't know how to articulate it.
Impact versus intent, right?
There you go. There you
We
go. Hey,
mean well, but, like, and we know that we mean well, but if our intentions aren't received that way by our kids,
mhm,
we might feel like we communicated it, like, the right way, the way we know how, the way that we wanna hear things, but if they walk away hearing and feeling a different message, it doesn't matter what we said.
yes,
Like,
yes,
we have to figure out a way to, like, have this relationships are a two-way street, and I think that's such an important thing for dads to realize is, like, as a dad, we are this authority figure. We have a built-in control. There are laws that say that we can control things with our kids. And so if we want to parent that way, if we want to say like I'm the parent and here's why, you can do that. But understand that there are going to be repercussions for taking that sort of stance with your kids. And if you care about how they feel about you as a dad, then you got to retool some things. You got to know like okay, what worked for me might not work for this kid. Or actually, what I should have said was, "What works for me might not work for my kids," or even one step further, "What works for one of my kids might not work for the other
there you
one."
go. There
And
you
then
go.
it's like, "Oh, man, so I can't just do what feels right because I know that I've got these good intentions and I've got all this life experience behind me, and I know and I feel inside that my kids should just trust me on this." But if that's not the result at the end of your conversation, then as a dad, you got to step back and you got to reassess, man. You got to retool and say like, okay, what is my main objective with this? Is it just to shut it down and to like say no, you can't do this? Or is it for them to understand like where you're coming from? And like you said, Michael, that you're coming from a place of concern and care and love. And so, like I said earlier, on a bigger view, like how I help dads is like setting the goal, helping them get clear on the type of dad that they want to be. And then you like work backwards from that. And like you can even like sort of really take that down to like the conversational level, which is what we were just talking about, which is like, if my goal outcome is this, how do I get there? And like, here's a tip or a trick for anybody listening. Say that line to your kid. Hey, I know you want to do this thing. My goal, let's have a conversation about it. My goal for this conversation is for you to walk away having a crystal clear understanding of where I'm coming from in all my thoughts and feelings about blank, whatever it is that we're talking about. How can I how can I do that? What is the best way? Like to your kid, get their feedback. Hey, tell me, what do you think is the best way for us to get there? And, like, if you soften your tone a little bit and you're, like, genuinely curious and you wanna hear from them, like, how they think the conversation should go, just think about how that impact is so much different than the first thing that we
Yeah,
talked about. It's
absolutely.
it's worlds apart, man.
Yeah, and that's the thing for me is that these are skills that I've learned a bit more, especially since, my wife and I got married, and keep in mind, we've been married for 23 years. Well, we've been married for 20 years, been together 23. But the thing is that these are all skills that I kind of had to learn on the fly. And she's a much more softer approach type person than I am.
That's natural, right? That's probably pretty common in a lot of households. Not
Yeah.
every, but in a lot.
I mean, for a long time, I was literally the epitome of, bull in the china shop, man, you know, because they, I- always told my kids I love them, always hugged them, always, this, that, and other thing. But when it came down to things needing to get done, things, their behavior or, how they were doing in school, respect to other adults, you know, it was like, it was constantly a challenge for me to learn how to articulate what I expected from them without being angry. And so again, this is something I want to help other guys with, so you don't end up in the same situation as me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
again,
and it takes work. Like, it's not it's not as easy. Like, just reacting based off of all of our life's conditioning, that's
yes,
easy. That comes natural. There's no
yes,
effort in that. It's just like you turn the faucet on and what comes out, and it's different for different people, but, like,
yeah,
that's there. That's easy, and, like, we've also got a long history of doing things that way. So not only is it easy, it's kind of ingrained in us. So there's that. That's what I would call just reacting. But then there's responding. And then, like, responding is more along the lines of that, like, having that goal of how you want your kids to walk away from this conversation and reverse engineering how to construct that conversation and asking your kids for feedback. Like, that's a response when you use, like, the creative part of your brain to, like, think like, okay, well, if this is what I want to happen, how am I going to get there?
mhm,
And am I willing to be, like, vulnerable with things? Am I willing to just listen? I have a lot that I want to say, but am I willing to keep my mouth closed and just listen to them first? Like, all these things, these are things that are a part of having an intentional response instead of that automatic reaction.
right, outstanding. And I'll take for me, like, even I learned very early on, I always wanted to advise my kids, so we always tried to have open conversations, no matter what it was about. I always felt like if a kid was old enough to ask you a question, regardless how uncomfortable it was, you know, then they were ready to hear the answer. Because especially when it came to me, if you're coming to me with a question that is uncomfortable, you are definitely ready to hear the answer.
Yeah.
So I always made it a point to give my kids advice and understanding that it's advice. It's not the way, it's just advice. So whether they go left or right, I'm going to tell them what I felt was best for them, not what makes me feel good inside, but what was best for them. And
Mm.
that is something that has taken me a long time to, really tailor, understand that I needed to tailor that approach to each one of my kids, not assuming that, hey, what worked for, my son is going to work for my daughter, you know, no. So a question, I was thinking about, when did you start thinking, hey, I need to be an intentional father? When did that finally occur to you? You were like, was it like a gradual thing or like a slap in the face, kind of like, hey, I need to change my approach?
It's such a good question, and I would say there were a couple slaps. So, like, it wasn't just one moment. There
Okay.
are things that I can really point back to, like, really sort of painful moments,
Mhm.
um, that really helped me to realize that I wasn't on the path that I wanted to be on when it came to being a dad. And ultimately, kinda just with living the kinda life that I wanted to live. And so, I worked in, call it, a corporate setting for about 18 years, um, in a really fun industry for an amazing company. I started there part-time. I went to art school for college and got out of art school and got a part-time job in this company's graphic design department. And over the course of 18 years and a handful of promotions and then switching out of any sort of creative role and going into more of a traditional business role, you know, I over time in and it happened gradual, so I didn't really catch it, but I subconsciously was tying my value as a father very directly to how much money I was able to provide for my family. So
Mm,
it's like when an opportunity came up for a promotion, I felt like that made me a better dad because that was my measuring stick, my ability to provide. Well, like when you take on roles with more responsibility, typically, and it certainly was the case with me, like the stress goes up with that, right? So I'm dealing with more and more stress, having issues with anxiety, trying, medication, from the doctor with mixed results, eventually getting to a point where I had a panic attack, which is something that I hadn't ever experienced before. And fortunately only had the one. But like my my desire to be a provider at a high level for my family was taking a toll on me physically and mentally and emotionally as well. And I was able to see, like, there were too many times when I wasn't being the dad that I wanted to be for my kids. And I was lucky. And like my job had regular working hours. It was not far away from my house, but where the biggest challenge for me was I would be at home around my family, but mentally I'm at work still.
Right.
And I'm trying to solve problems and I'm troubleshooting things before they happen and figuring out like how to handle this if kind of everything hits the fan. And there was, you asked about like moments in time, like was it a slap in the face? There was one of those slaps was the panic attack that I mentioned because like that's such a wake up call that like things are not working, right? Your body, that's your body stepping in to be like, "Hey, I'm going to shut you down for a second and here's a signal that things aren't right. You're not going to be able to ignore this one." So that's how I look at the panic attack. This other moment was we were taking a little weekend getaway. I live in Central Ohio, and there's this incredible amusement park called Cedar Point. It's up on Lake Erie, and my
I love
wife and I
Cedar
took
Point.
her. It is. You been there?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm
Uh,
up in Michigan.
oh, right on.
Yeah.
My dad lived in East Lansing for about 10 years.
Okay.
Um,
Outstanding.
So we were at Cedar Point for the weekend and had an amazing day on Saturday, awesome night on Saturday night. We stayed in a hotel up there. Kids, jumping on the bed, like just all the things, like awesome family little mini vacation type of deal. And Sunday morning, I wake up and we did like my daughter got to sleep in the bed with my wife and my son slept in the bed with me. So it was like a little sleepover thing. And the kids thought that was so fun. So I wake up on Sunday morning and I'm an early riser, and so my eyes open, and
Same.
I realize that like my son is like nestled into my shoulder, and he was probably I'd say 5 at the time, and I was like, "Wow, how cool is this?" Like just kind of taking things in, like you open your eyes in hotel room, it's like, "Where am I?" And it's like, "Oh yeah, we had this awesome day." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, my son's right there," and like it was sort of like bliss, like, "Wow, how cool is this moment?" And it lasted for what felt like about 15 seconds, and then my mind went to, "Man, we that software upgrade at work is
Mm,
happening in 3 weeks, and I gotta figure out how I get this other department to take responsibility for, like, their checklist items to make sure that this software upgrade goes as planned, because if it doesn't, like, it could basically shut the company down, and like all the eyes are on me and I got to know like how to answer these questions if the president's calling me, cuz at the end of my 18 years at this company I was the vice president of our IT department, and I didn't have an IT I I didn't have an IT background then and I still don't. So like um I, I caught myself. I'm like, here I was in this like incredibly rich and for all intents and purposes this perfect moment with my family, and it was over like that. And then I'm off to work. I left the hotel room and
right.
mentally at my desk at work trying to solve problems. And that moment was so jarring for me once I realized what I was doing, to where it was another very clear signal of, John, you're not doing it right. You're not doing this the way that you're going to feel proud of later in life. And man, you better figure it out because your kids are growing up quick. If my son was 5 at that time, my daughter would have been 9.
Okay.
It's like, It's not like they're babies, man. Like, they're noticing, like, these are the moments, and I knew that I was missing it, and so it was a true wake-up call for me.
Yeah. And I found that a lot of guys that I've talked to, are in similar situations. It's just, it's been panic attacks. It's been guys, who, they started drinking. They realized, oh, holy shit, it's the weekend and I'm getting up in the morning drinking just, just out of stress, not because I want to, just because I'm so stressed, or it's, you know, nobody, guys can't relax at home. We can't get work out of our heads. You know, we're at home and still in work mode, just like you, and we're not present. And people know they can tell when you're not present. We're having a conversation and just by your responses, they know that your mind is focused on something else,
Oh,
you
yeah?
know, and as
Oh,
guys,
yeah.
you're good, you're good,
Oh,
you're
hold on,
good.
I'll be right there. No,
Yeah.
I'm saying
Oh,
that's with our kids. You're like, "Okay, yeah.
yeah.
Oh, oh, yeah?
You got your phone
Like, at
out.
school?
Yep.
That happened?
Yeah.
We think we're getting away with something."
And people see it. People see it, and especially our kids. And for me, even, and I'm sure most guys, we try as hard as we can, to have that healthy work life balance. But I find that, and especially today, work is we're available to our employer 24/7, and that shouldn't be the case. You know, After work hours, don't call me. You know, I've given you 10, 12 hours of my life already today. What I have left over is I have to try to be as fully engaged with my family as possible, you know. And I know coming from the military, even after like my first deployment, I deployed with, I want to say, man, like 9 guys who are married. After my deployment, almost all of those families are no longer families. So there's me, Sarans, Salcedo. There out of that group, there are only 3 families left that are husbands and wives and their kids that are still together. And a portion of that is us not being able to. We don't. We can't talk to our significant other about the deployment, because you know bad things happen. But then you bring a lot of that baggage home, and you don't know how to deal with it, so it comes out negatively with your family because you at that point, for guys who are planning on staying in the military, it's hard to get mental help, because it can have an impact on your military career.
No kidding.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and that's something that like a lot of people don't realize about the military is that, and it may be better today, just when I was in, you did not want to be the soldier who was getting, mental health because it will, depending on your job, especially can really have an impact on your promotions and that,
You don't want it on
so
your record.
no, yeah, you do not want people to know that, you're receiving any kind of treatment,
So you were
so
forced to decide, or people in that situation are forced to
yeah.
decide, like, sh d can I get help with this thing that, I'll never pretend. One, I wanna thank you for your service, Michael,
Oh,
and everybody that serves in our armed forces, just know that your sacrifices are not lost on me, and I deeply respect and
yeah,
appreciate it.
no, and I appreciate that, but I just want people to, we need to be able to talk. We need to be able to vent. And even though, our significant others cannot understand the trauma or the things that we're going through or have gone through, we need to be able to talk. You know, Even if you can't help, sometimes getting it out, just saying it is a thing. But I say that, like for you even, you're constantly in work mode, you know, constantly, 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 no matter what you do, and we all need to be able to find a place where we can disconnect from our employer or whatever we have going on at the time, just to be present for our families. Because at some point, and the kids today are starting earlier and earlier where they're disconnecting from their families and they just want to be with their friends, and, but
No, there's a statistic that I've come across that I repeat often, and it aligns with what you were saying. And it said that by the time that our kids turn 12, that we've already spent 75% of all of the in-person time. There's a That's a big that's like a wasp flying around. Okay, I'm gonna keep an eye on that. By the time our kids turn 12, it said that like 75% of all the face-to-face time that we're ever gonna have with them is
Mhm.
gone. And by the time they turn 18, that percentage jumps up to 90%. So that just kind of it illustrates your point, like, and that's what can trip so many dads up is we think that we have until they're 18. If the plan is for them to go to college, we the finish line for us as a parent, we feel like it's 18. But in reality, like that finish line is way closer to like 12 or 13 for the reasons you just mentioned. They're going to start becoming more social and they're going to want to start to build, individual relationships, like whether they're just social relationships or if they want to start having a boyfriend at whatever age is appropriate in family, things shift. And so that's like, I mean, for any dads that are out there hearing this, like just get in front of it. Don't wait. You don't have as much time as you think you do. And I don't want you to wake up one day and feel like you missed it because I've talked to so many dads that's their experience. They worked hard, they wanted to be a great provider. Man, I talked to this one guy, he's a real estate developer, like A-level celebrity connections. Anybody that looked at him was massively successful. Talking to him, he's like, "John, what I wouldn't give to go back and have another chance to do that over again and the changes that I would make and the things that I would do differently." So it's like, just don't that regret is too heavy, and I'm not willing to live my life. I'm not willing to be 70 or 80 years old and look back and think, "Man, I just wish I could have done it different." I'm not willing to feel that way. So, I'm doing little things every single day, creating small intentional moments with my kids, being vulnerable, sharing things with them. So when I do get to that, season of my life, and every time I talk about this, like I'm always on a dock. I'm on a dock and I'm overlooking some water and the sun's going down and there's like some trees back there. And I'm just thinking about my time with my kids when they were younger. And I can tell you, Michael, I will be celebrating how I showed up, and I'm gonna know that, man, I didn't leave anything on the table. Was I perfect? No, of course not. Do I still make mistakes and stub my toe on things when it comes to being a dad? Yeah, all the time. But one, I talk about it with my kids, and I circle back. I'm like, "Hey, how I handled that situation, I could have done better, right?" And, like, I'm vulnerable that way. The other thing that I do with my kids, I ask them, "You wanna do a cool experiment for anybody that's listening? Talk to your kids. This you gotta be ready for this because the answer might sting. First, you ask them, "Hey, as a dad, I wanna know what you think I'm really good at." And you just close your mouth and you listen to their answer. And then when they're done talking, you keep your mouth closed for like another 3 or 4 seconds, and you make sure that they don't start talking again. Create a little space. And then if they're done, thank them for it. Say, "Wow, cool. Thank you for telling me that. I'm gonna do more of that for you. Now that I know that it means that much to you, watch. I'm gonna do more of that." And then the second question, and this is what you gotta be ready for. "Hey, son or daughter, what do I do right now that you think I could do better? Where could I improve when it comes to being your dad?"
Mm,
And then you keep your mouth shut and you listen, and what you hear might sting. It's not it's not a fun answer to hear, whatever comes out. If they're being honest, if they say, "Oh, dad, you're perfect," take that as a signal as you need to find a way to build a level of trust and safety and connection with your kids to where they're willing to share a hard truth with you. So that's one thing. If they say, "Nope, you're great," then you need to circle back and figure out how to create that trust. But if you have that trust already built into the relationship and you ask them where you could be doing better, what they say back hurts. It
right.
hurts. But that short-term pain is worth it in the long run because you listen to them and you give them that space to tell you how you could be a better dad. And then you tell them how much you appreciate them being honest with you. And you say, "Watch what happens over the next 3 or 4 weeks. You watch what happens with me when it comes to that feedback that you just gave me. You're going to notice a difference. And if you don't, I want you to come tell me because me improving in the way that you just told me, there's nothing more important to me when it comes to being your dad. So I'm gonna do it for you. And like, just think about how that conversation feels for our kids.
Wow. I can tell you right now, I see a huge difference between my older children and my younger kids. And I think the difference is in part is because I started understanding the hiccups I was having. You know, so and John, I can tell you, I can be honest about this. Hey, I moved out of my parents' house when I was 15, turning 16. You know, and I've not been back since. I think I came back home for about a month. When my oldest daughter was born. I ran the streets for a while. You know, not getting in any trouble. I've never been to jail or anything like that. But I learned, you know, I've learned now, I should say, that the difference between my older kids and my younger kids, I have a better relationship with my younger kids because I've learned so much from all the mistakes that I've made with my older kids. So my goal with them, with my older kids especially, is to try to bridge some of that gap, fix some of the things that we went through. Because again, with my older kids, I did try to do a kind of one size fits all parenting, and I learned quick in a hurry that that did not work. Also, though, my oldest daughter, she was involved in an accident back in 2003. She was hit by a semi truck.
Oh my goodness.
That almost losing my child kinda shaped the way I parented after that. So the kids weren't allowed to go anywhere by themselves, so if you wanted to go play, one of your siblings had to go with you. You had to come back, check in every hour. If you didn't check in, I was at the park or wherever you were supposed to be at, you know, and it never dawned on me what an impact that accident had had until I was much, much older, you know, and there's no going back in time, clearly,
That's right.
you know, but a part of what I'm doing with the podcast is learning how to be a better version and maybe how to go back and address some issues that, again, you know, shouldn't have been the way they were, but it happened because, again, like I said, there were no there were no outlets. There were no I mean, had I have taken, these dad goals that, you just spoke about and implemented that in my life earlier on, man, my relationship with my kids, especially my older kids, will probably be much different. And maybe not, because, again,
Who
I was
knows?
a little hard headed. And could I have handled being told that, hey, dad, listen, man, you're kind of being an asshole. Probably not. Probably not. Would not have gone over well.
You
But
never know. You never
right,
know.
maybe. But hearing it now, like, man, I wish I could have done that earlier. Man, I wish, this was, something this conversation was available to me earlier. Hearing
Mm.
another dad tell me, "Hey, maybe try this approach," you know, and I might have given you a little shit for it. You know, I'm not about to sit here and let my kids tell me, this, that, or the third.
Yeah.
But as an older father now, God, man, I wish I was there. And John, I commend you for that, man, because there are not enough of us who can take their pride, set it over here for a little bit, and hear an honest conversation. Especially for my child, because most men are going to be like, I'm the boss, you know, and yeah, maybe you are, but you're missing. Like we just said, we don't have a lot of time with our kids. And that's starting earlier and earlier because kids are getting in sports. They're getting in the different.
Travel sports are insane
Yes.
right
Oh
now.
my goodness. Right. Travel sports. My daughter's in dance. They just went on a trip to New York. None of that stuff existed when my other kids were younger. So and again, so I think these are specific things. Those, 3 examples you gave are more dads need to try to, accept that. And the other thing is, and I just learned this from another guest, and I hadn't thought about it, but we don't have any, like, trials or, like, things community where dads are finally welcome to the to the or man y- part of your life. So like if you're when you're in college, you go through all the initiations and things like that to become a man. But we don't have that anymore, for men to become men and for fathers to become fathers. You're just you're a dad, you're a man, and you're a father. We have nobody around to support us or to welcome us to this community anymore. As when my dad was, a young father, he had a father around that did that. You know, and most of my listeners know now that my stepfather is the only father I've ever known. You know, and he had a he had a trying relationship with his own dad. And I think that kind of trickled into our relationship a bit because hey, if you needed some advice on no, actually, he didn't give advice. He told you what the hell what you were or weren't going to do. Our sex conversation was like, "Hey, here's some condoms. Don't get anybody pregnant. If you do, don't go home." You know, and he he did it with humor. I know he was kidding, but you know,
He got the point across.
right, right. That's exactly it. So John, I mean, we need more dads doing things, like we're doing. We need more dads, having conversations like you did with your own kids. You know, those are three hard. They seem simple, but those are. I mean, I can tell you, most of us are going to look at that and be like, man, I don't know if I can do that. So hats off to you for that because I'm telling you, most of us are not going to be able to do it, and we're gonna we're gonna we're gonna need guidance. That's what it is. Again, we're gonna need people like you telling us, "Hey, man, these are the steps that you need to take. You know, this worked for me, and maybe it might not work for you, but try this approach." So we need the community now. Busy dads, okay, working, tired, stretched thin. You know, how do we apply that? You know, how do we make time? For those things.
Yeah, it's a great question. And you said a phrase that's like a buzzword for me, which
Okay.
is make time. And I don't mean like in a negative way.
Mhm.
But in my opinion, the best place to start is not thinking that we have to make more time because we are so busy. And that can feel like it's like just one more thing, add it to the list. Now I have to make more time. I have all these things that I got to go do. And
Right.
it's a weight that comes along with that. And so what I would challenge dads to do is not make more time, but make better time. And
Mm. Okay.
really, that comes with just being very present. And you can start with these phones. Like, create some rules for yourself as a dad about where your phone lives, when you can and can't be on your phone. S- It it's invasive. These things, these devices, they are backed by billions of dollars and some of the smartest minds in the world to keep
Right.
us engaged with these things. And
Right.
like, we just got this soft, squishy one human brain up there. Like, it's not a fair fight, honestly. Like, they
No.
are designed to keep our attention. And so you got to know, like, hey, I don't want this phone. I don't want my kids seeing the back of this phone when they're trying to tell me something. Because if we don't have boundaries ourselves for how we handle our phones, we're kidding ourselves if we think that we're doing a good job and that our kids don't feel like sometimes they come second to the phone. And I caught myself doing this one time. I was sending a message about doing something to for one of our kids. I was sending a text to my wife, and like my kid came in and like they wanted to talk to me. And so in my mind, like I feel like I'm being a great dad. Like I'm doing something that in the long run is going to benefit this kid and it's going to make them happy, but they don't know that. Like I could tell them like, "Hey," like, and that's what I would say. Like if you're doing something that truly is important and meaningful and time sensitive on your phone, like okay, like, "Oh, hey, you know what, pal? Can I have 30 seconds? What I'm doing here is really cool." And it's actually like I'm kind of in a bit of a hurry to do it. But if you can give me like 30 seconds, I see you there. I'm gonna put this phone down and then we're gonna go build Legos or we're gonna go outside and shoot some hoops, whatever it is. Like, is that cool? Like how that takes what, 15 seconds? So you could pause and have a 15-second interaction with your kid where it's like, oh cool, they noticed me standing here, they communicated with me, they asked if that was okay with me, I said it was, and that they walk away from it like, oh cool, like dad sees me,
Right.
versus like you're like, okay, I only need 30 seconds, I'm not going to waste 15 seconds talking about it because I don't need to, so you just sit there and finish it. And now, like, your kid feels like they're second place to whatever's happening on that phone. And man, that's something that I never had to experience as a kid. And I cannot imagine what that feels like. It must feel horrible. And like, those are the big moments. Like, if a kid goes, oh man, like dad's always on their phone, like that's a big memorable moment. Think about all the small ones where maybe it's not that big, but it's more subtle. But there's like 1,000 of those small ones where it's like, dad's always on his phone. Maybe the kid's like watching YouTube and he wants to look over at you and be like, hey, dad, wasn't that funny? And like you're over there on your phone and the kid just goes, uh, never mind, not worth it. Like the cost is real. So back to where I started. You don't have to make more time, make better time. Find a way to make the time that you currently have with your kids be more present. Be more intentional. Think about that outcome. You got 10 minutes with them. What do you hope the outcome is from that 10 minutes? Do you want them to feel supported? Or do you want them to feel like emotionally like loved and connected with? Or do you just want them to smile, whatever? Or you can just ask them like, hey, like we got 10 minutes. What do you want to go do? Just make better time with your kids with what you have. And that is, if you can do that, you're gonna be so far ahead of the game.
Right. I will say, and just to add to that more, I learned the most about my kids. I used to have a standing rule at the house that since I'm the resident chef in the house, you guys are going to be the people who help with every meal. You guys are going to be like the sous chefs and help
Mhm.
me get everything prepped. When we would do that together, I learned the most about my kids without even asking a single question. We're just sitting there prepping dinner. Kids are chopping up peppers or whatever we're doing for dinner that night. The kids are helping. And man, the amount of information that I get from the kids, just from that was unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. You know, the girls were talking about cute boy at school. My oldest daughter, we used to watch football together. And, as she started getting a little bit older, we'd be prepping dinner, watching football. She's like, "Oh, he's cute." I'm like, "Football's not cute. Nobody's cute." But it was her opportunity to express whatever she wanted to me. But I
Yeah,
didn't ask questions. So one thing tried not to do is ask questions. I might ask follow-up questions, you know, whatever they're talking about, but I just let them gab or they would just talk to each other, and I just be, the adult in the room, making sure nobody slice off a finger, but so whatever, like for dads, whatever it is that you like doing with your kids, my kids love to cook, you know, do that. And I think you can learn the most about your kids, you know.
create the
Now,
space.
yeah,
Create the space.
John. So there was a something about how do you become a better father if you do not have a good example?
Find a good example.
Okay.
Like, put yourself in the room. Like, there's quotes about people that wanna be like, good leaders. They say,
Hmm.
"Put yourself in the room with people that are good leaders." So,
Okay.
if you don't have an active example of, like, what a good dad looks like in your life, put yourself in a space where you can be around other dads and ask questions and learn from them. Like, those things are available. And, I if I can take a second, to talk about a space that I created,
Yes,
um,
absolutely.
it's a community. So the platform is called School. It's SKOOL.com. And it's an online community platform. And I started a free community called the Engaged Father Project. And right now there's 61 dads in there. And we're doing these daily engaged father challenges where it's like one small thing to try throughout the day. And if you read it and you're like, you know what, I'm going to do that. You commit, you go on there and you like leave a comment. You're like, I'm going to do this today. And then you do it. And then you come back in later that evening or whenever you have time and you just talk about like, did you do it? And how did it go? And like the one for today, like they don't all have to be like these, big exhausting challenges. The one, and I put these things out on my social media channels as well. But the one for today is write your kids a note and hide it somewhere where they'll find it later on today or tomorrow. And just let them know like how you feel about them or what you appreciate about them or how thankful you are to have them in your life or whatever you want to communicate to them. Just leave them a small note. And like each week, as part of this little daily challenge, we're doing like a different subject each week. So this is acts of love and kindness. So
I like that.
to answer your question, for anybody that's hearing this, come join the community. It's free. I'll send you a link to the community so people can find it easily. Um, and and come be around other dads. And like, here's what's really cool is it's a group of dads that all understand how important this work is and they understand that it's time sensitive. And so they're raising their hand to say like this matters. So I'm going to show up and do it. And so you're surrounded by other people that know how important this is and we start to build this like true sense of like community and brotherhood and connection with people and like we can challenge each other and support each other and laugh along the way like all with the same goal of just being the best dad that we can be. And so, you could say it's like a form of social media. I mean, it's online interaction, but like everybody knows like some of the challenges and some of the negative side effects that come along with traditional social media. Like this
Sure.
kind of social media, like this is like you're surrounding yourself with people that want the same thing that you do, and they're going to help you get there. So it's like
Right.
just sign me up for that. So, man, I would love for people to come
Would like if you
join.
did.
Yeah, Mike, you took the words right out of my mouth, man. I love what you're saying, and I love your message, and I would love for you to be a part of this community as well. So,
I would be
would you
honored.
can? Yeah, cool, cool, man. That's exciting. So, for anybody that already is listening and knows Michael, come hang out with Michael. Like, come be in a community full of dads, and you could send Michael a text and be like, hey, like, what are your thoughts on this? Or just see him interacting with somebody else and giving advice or supporting or just hearing about how Michael's being a great dad today. Um, how exciting. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to seeing you in
Yeah.
there, man.
Honestly, send me the link today. I will when we close out today, that'll be the first thing I do. It'll be the
You got it.
absolute first thing I do. Actually, I have a couple of young dads who honestly so my son's son, my grandson, is 6 months old yesterday,
Oh,
and
congrats.
then my, my adopted sorta we brought him into our club here at the house, his son is 4 months old, I think today. uh, Friday. I think Friday he'll be 4 months old. But the reality is that there are 2 brand new dads with 2 brand new kids, not even a year old yet, and I would love to send them both an invite to this, and just I don't wanna see another young man struggle, and I think it would be good for him. And anybody out there listening, I think, you know what? It's worth a try. As a father, you can never stop trying.
Hmm.
You know? So whether you're trying to fix a relationship, whether you're trying to make a relationship stronger, no matter what the condition of your relationship is, you can never stop trying. You know, I know we have hiccups. I'm a prime example of that.
We all do.
But excuse me, uh, I want to continue trying. I want to continue to be a good dad. I want to be a better grandfather. I don't know. Maybe when I pass away, the kids will cremate me and I'll be I don't know, good soil for, plants or something.
Yeah.
I just want to continue to try to be a good example for my kids. And John, having these conversations with men like you is exhilarating for me because
Mhm.
it gives me hope, for men. Because again, like I said, I'm 52, man, and there was none of this. There was none of this when I was a young father. So I'm hoping that, you know, conversations with, with you, you know, things like the Engaged Father Project will give men a place to talk, you know, or I mean, and even if we're not talking, it will give us some better ideas, you know,
That's right.
to help build bonds with our kids. So thank you for, the Engaged Father Project. Again, I haven't, I read up on it. I haven't seen it in action, so I want full disclosure, people, I'm not actually part of the community yet, but when John and I finish today, I will be. So, and
Love it.
I hope the rest of you decide to join too. No effort is a bad effort as far as I'm concerned. Not doing anything is not a good idea. So before before we close, John, years from now, when you look back, on your life as a father, as a grandfather, whatever that might be, what are you hoping your kids are going to say about you to their kids?
Mm, I love this, and I'm able to answer it.
Okay.
It's part of the work and how I support dads.
Hmm.
I want my kids to say that they always felt safe and that they felt seen and valued as
Yes.
a member of our family and that they felt like they always had my support.
Hmm.
And I want them to see how I tried every day to be 1% better than the day before. And just
Hmm.
for them to know that I was always trying to be the best dad that I could be for them and that I just never settled because they mean everything to me and I want them to feel that.
Love that. I love that. All right. So let's piggyback off that and questions for dads. Okay. For the dad listening, okay, who feels like he's falling short, he's not doing enough. What would you say directly to dads who want to be better, want to do more?
I would tell them that I understand what it feels like when you tell yourself that you're not doing a good enough job when it comes to being a dad. And I
Mhm.
know I know the pain, and for me, there was shame
Right.
that came along with that, and those are really heavy emotions to deal with. But I will tell you that no matter what age your kids are, I know we talked a lot earlier about time with our kids before they grow up and leave the house, but even when our kids are grown, like, we can always repair relationships and strengthen relationships.
Right.
Don't wait. Don't let your regrets from the past change what you do today with your kids. And man, I think there's so much power when it comes to being vulnerable and honest with our kids and owning our mistakes, telling them where we were coming from at the time, and just coming from a place of nothing but love and compassion and understanding. And like, if we lead with those sorts of qualities and we get things like fear and anger and frustration and stress and all those things that can sort of like create this little ego monster that we have, when we can set that stuff aside and just fall back to things like love, just lean into that. And sometimes it's hard. We don't know what form or shape that will take, but if we're coming from just a truly loving spot, for me, that's the North Star.
I'm gonna leave it with that, ladies and gentlemen, because I don't think I can top that. So, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. John Hord, and please, please, please look at the Fatherhood Project.
The Engaged Father
Yeah,
Project.
yes, the
Yeah,
Engaged Fatherhood Project. All right, guys, listen, I'm a little bit old, sometimes, I have little memory lapses and whatnot. Please don't judge me. John, thank you so much for coming on the show. Hey, again, please do not forget to send me that link because I'm a man of my word. Uh, you send it to me 5 minutes after you send it to me, I will be a member.
I can't wait to see you in there, Michael. Thank you
Outstanding.
for the time. Thank you everybody for listening today. Michael, I love what you're doing. Your message, you putting this out there so other people can find it, to me, that is an act of love. And you are trying to help other people improve their lives, and we just can't get enough of that. So I sincerely thank you for what you're doing.
Outstanding. Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, John Hord.
Thanks.
Technical difficulties.
They happen.